Please join me in our first hymn, number 1051, We Are. Please stand in body or spirit. This hopefully will warm you up. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
Good morning. Hey, that was a new one, but I really like that song. It's just it really stirs up a lot of feelings. So anyway, there I was last Friday, not this last Friday, but a week before, heading for the men's retreat out past Malala. I thought I knew where I was going, but driving, and I realized I'm lost. It's getting dark. I don't have any GPS. I don't know where this place is anymore. But you know what? I didn't worry too much because I knew that my brothers would help me. And so I got a call from Bob Muir. He said, "Rick, where are you?" And I said, "I'm lost." And we figured it out. And finally, the men had to line up on the side of the road with their flashlights so I would see the turn. And that's how we are as a religious community. We put the lights out for each other so that we can find our way home, so that we can come to this place and help one another. So I was just being lost, but I realized, I said, my brothers are going to reach out and they'll get me there. And that's how it felt. And I hope that's how it feels for you coming here too. So good morning. We got a great service. It's an interesting service at this time of the year where we focus on ancestral matters. So I'm really, really grateful to see all of you sitting here today. We're building up strength every Sunday. We're coming back from the pandemic. So tell your friends it's safe to come, it's good to come, and it's good to be with other people, and that when you come, we get to see you, and that's really cool. So thanks for showing up today.
Good morning. We couldn't begin a men's retreat without Rick, so we had to be out there. And everything turned out great. It was a great retreat, and we hope to see more men there next year. So we begin with these words. Please join us in saying our affirmation. Love is our doctrine. Compassion is our way. Here we seek to create a joyful home for free religious exploration. Build a community of caring fellowship. nurture the hopes, and serve the needs of our world.
525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments so dear, 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year? In daylights, in sunsets, in midnights, in cups of coffee, in inches, in miles, in laughter, in strife. In 525,600 minutes, how do you measure a year in the life? How about love? How about love? How about love? Measuring love. Seasons of love, seasons of love. 525,600 minutes, 525,000 journeys to plan, 525,600 minutes. How do you measure the life of a woman or a man? In truth that she learned, or in times that he cried, in bridges he burned, or the way that she died. It's time now to sing out, though the story never ends. Let's celebrate, remember a life in the life of friends. Remember the love, remember the love, remember the love, measure in love. Seasons of love, seasons of love.
Thank you, Dennis. I always love to hear you sing. I sang with Dennis in another choir some years ago, and he's a great singer. Every Sunday, we light 3 candles, 3 chalices, as a reminder of our connections to others. The first is for friends and members of this Unitarian Universalist congregation of Salem. Our second chalice is for our partner church and friends in Siemanfalva, Transylvania, Romania. And our third chalice, which Molly just brought us. Thank you, Molly. It was my job to see if that chalice was present, and I forgot. Our third chalice is for the children and youth in religious education and around the world. So please join me now in singing The Flame into Life. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Good morning. Can everybody young or young at heart please join me up front today? Wonderful. Hello, welcome. Yay. Awesome. Welcome, welcome. Today I am reading a story about courage, since courage is our theme this month. It's called After the Fall. It's how Humpty Dumpty got back up again. It's really cute. The pictures will be up there behind me. My name is Humpty Dumpty. This was my favorite spot, high up on the wall. I know it's an odd place for an egg to be, but I loved being close to the birds. Then one day, I fell. I'm sort of famous for that part. Folks called it the Great Fall, which sounds a little grand. It was just an accident, but it changed my life. Fortunately, all the king's men managed to put me back together. Well, most of me. There were some parts that couldn't be healed with bandages and glue. After that day, I became afraid of heights. I was so scared that it kept me from enjoying some of my favorite things. I walked past the wall every day, and I would think about climbing that ladder again. I really missed the birds and being high above the city, but I could never do it because I knew that accidents can happen. I eventually settled for watching the birds from the ground. It wasn't the same, but it was better than nothing. Then one day, an idea flew by. Making planes was harder than I thought. It was easy to get cuts and scratches, but day after day, I kept trying and trying until I got it just right. My plane was perfect, and it flew like nothing could stop it. I hadn't felt that happy in a long time. It wasn't the same as being up in the sky with the birds, but it was close enough. Unfortunately, accidents happen. They always do. I almost walked away again, but then I thought about all the time I'd spent working on my plane and all the other things I'd missed. I decided I was going to climb that wall. But the higher I got, the more nervous I felt. I didn't want to admit it. I was terrified. I didn't look up. I didn't look down. I just kept climbing, one step at a time, until I was no longer afraid. Maybe now you won't think of me as that egg who was famous for falling. Hopefully, you'll remember me as the egg who got back up and learned how to fly. The end. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Just a reminder that on October 30th, you guys can all wear your Halloween costumes because we're going to have a super fun parade. Okay. And then we're also having our trunk or treat event on the 30th at 3 p.m. in the parking lot. Lots of fun activities, fun stuff to do, and lots of candy and other things. Also for our middle school and high schoolers, there's another event happening that day at the Melon Shack Corn Maze. And if you would like more information on that, you can contact me or Ben Cavaletto. Also, November 6th at noon, we are having our parents' social luncheon. And so everybody is invited to that. It's going to be the same time as coffee service. So it's just a chance to get to know everybody and all the families and reconnect. Okay? Okay, if everybody can stand up in the center and make the love arch, we'll be on our way. Thank you.
Wherever you walk, walk in love. Wherever you walk, walk in peace. Wherever you walk, walk in beauty all around you. Our hearts go with you. Wherever you walk, walk in love. Wherever you walk, walk in peace. Wherever you walk, walk in beauty all around you.
Yes, wherever you walk, walk in love. Let's be together now in a time of reflection. Center yourself in this moment and feel the deeper rhythms of your life. You can let go for a moment of all those worries and anxieties. And let's go deep into our hearts. Deep into our hearts where we find compassion. We find compassion first and foremost for ourselves. Have compassion for yourself and all the struggles that you go through. Your struggles connect you with other people. Let us look around the world around us, and let us notice the ones who are not connected, the ones who are without friends or family connections, the ones who are cast aside by a cruel world, the ones who sit in prison cells and hospital beds. Let us find ways to minister to and be present with those who are alone and friendless in our world. Let us cultivate hearts of boundless compassion, that we might lead lives of compassion, for compassion is our way. And gratitude. Gratitude for all that has brought us together here in this present moment. Let us be grateful. All the stories of our ancestors, all the struggles of our great-grandparents and grandparents and parents, all the sacrifices that have been made so that we might have life and have it more abundantly. For all those who enrich our lives, for each of us who enrich the lives of others around us, we are grateful, we are grateful. May we always remember to have a heart of gratitude. Amen.
Good morning. I'm George Pitter, your Lifelines lay minister this morning. The Lifelines lay ministry assists the minister in providing compassionate caring to the members of our congregation. We also connect with those who are homebound, and we endeavor to provide a welcoming presence to visitors. We can be contacted on the website or in person, and I'm supposed to be wearing a lavender badge, but that's how you can find us. And I don't have any joys and concerns to read this morning. So I think what I'll do, I'll light one candle for all the joys and concerns that weren't shared with us this morning. Thank you.
This rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away.
Here are some selections from A Short History of Nearly Everything by Bill Bryson. Welcome and congratulations. I'm delighted you could make it. Getting here was not easy, I know. In fact, I suspect that it was a little tougher than you realize. To begin with, for you to be here, now, trillions of drifting atoms had somehow to assemble in an intricate and intriguingly obliging manner to create you. It's an arrangement so specialized and particular that it has never been tried before and will only exist this once. For the next many years, we hope, these tiny particles will uncomplainingly engage in all the billions of deft, cooperative efforts necessary to keep you intact and let you experience the supremely agreeable but generally underappreciated state known as existence. So thank goodness for atoms. But the fact that you have atoms and that they assemble in such a willing manner is only part of what got you here. To be here now, alive in the 21st century and smart enough to know it, you also had to be the beneficiary of an extraordinary string of biological good fortune. Survival on Earth is surprisingly tricky. Of the billions and billions of species of living things that have existed since the dawn of time, 99.99% of them no longer are around. Life on Earth, you see, is not only brief, but dismayingly tenuous. It's a curious feature of our existence that we come from a planet that is very good at promoting life, but even better at extinguishing it. Not only have you been lucky enough to be attached since time immemorial to a favorite evolutionary line, but you've all been extremely, make that miraculously, fortunate in your personal ancestry. Consider the fact that for 3.8 billion years of time, older than the Earth's mountains and rivers and oceans, every one of your forebears on both sides have been attractive enough to find a mate, healthy enough to reproduce, and sufficiently blessed by fate and circumstance to live long enough to do so. Not one of your pertinent ancestors was squashed, devoured, drowned, starved, stranded, stuck fast, untimely wounded, or otherwise deflected from its life's quest of delivering a tiny charge of genetic material to the right partner at the right moment in order to perpetuate the only possible sequence of hereditary combinations that could result eventually, astoundingly, and all too briefly, in you.
Thank you, Bob. Well, at least that was the scientific angle on this whole thing. There are other perspectives too, I suspect too, but you know, sometimes I have recurring dreams where certain themes and motifs reappear, and many of them are mysterious and moving and wondrous, and I think, man, I wonder what that dream was about. I'm intrigued by it, that symbol, and it feels good, it feels uplifting. But then there's this one dream. It's a recurring dream, but I haven't had it for some time, and I hope I don't ever have it again, really. It's an unsettling dream. I think you could qualify it as a nightmare. And in this dream, it is as though I exist all alone in some foggy realm, and there's no possibility of making a connection with anyone. Not a soul. And I'm all alone in this dreary realm where there is no thing or no one else to be seen. And I feel like this must be what hell is like. It's not raging infernos and demons with pitchforks. Rather, it's just being absolutely alone, cosmic solitary confinement. It's such a dreadful dream. Here's my interpretation of it. This dream comes to me as a spiritual warning, a warning about my need, about everyone's need to have authentic connection with the vast web of interbeing of which we are a part. I love that phrase, interbeing. That comes from the Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, and he refers to our state of existence as interbeing because none of us exist apart in isolation. We don't. And he has another great word that I love. He says that we inter-are. We don't exist as individual people, and we know that's true. And anything that helps me become more conscious of this, more authentically plugged into life, love, nature, art, I designate that spiritual, even if it's not connected to religious community or spiritual practice. But if it does that, I say that it's spiritual because these things expand my spirit and they connect me to the greater whole. Over the years, I've stretched my understanding of the concept of spirituality, and I have simultaneously distilled it down into its simple, sweet essence. All that enhances our awareness of our interconnectivity, our interdependence with other people, and with the spirit of life, I'd say that's spiritual. Which is to say that spirituality is, it's never just about me or it's never just about you. Spirituality is always about us. It's about us, all of us. And I have belatedly come to recognize that this should include awareness of those who came before us, as well as those who are yet to come. So what I'm saying is that there is a transgenerational aspect to spirituality, which is why you see so many people in ancient cultures revering their ancestors. They recognize this. Maybe this is why I have the nightmare that I mentioned earlier, because I have been living in a very foggy realm in regards to my ancestries. I know, of course, my own parents. My mother, she was a sweet, hardworking soul, but she was forced by economic necessity to work full-time outside the home, all during my childhood. So I don't think I really got to know her that well. And as for my father, poor man, he was rarely around, and he rarely noticed me when he was, and that was before my parents divorced, and he was effectively out of my life after that. So you can see why I might feel a little foggy about some things. As for my grandparents, I slightly knew both of my grandmothers, but I never got to meet either of my grandfathers. They had died before I was born. But my mother did show me this genealogical chart that showed that supposedly we are descendants of a noble who fought with William the Conqueror when he invaded England. And we're also descendants of one of the 25 barons who forced King John to sign the Magna Carta. Well, I think if you look at genealogical charts, you could probably say there's thousands of people who could probably make similar types of claims, so I wasn't quite sure what to make of that. My father was born in Florida, and it was always rumored that there was some Seminole Indian blood mixed in the family line, but I didn't know if that was true. Who knew if that was true? And I had heard that my great-great-maternal grandfather was a soldier in the Confederate Army, but I didn't know much about it. I heard a few other stray stories about my ancestors when I was growing up, but these stories were really, they were so insubstantial as to be just vague conjectures. And I always wanted to know more. I think that's a pretty common human yearning, to know where you came from, to know the stories of the elders, the memories of the ancestors. And so finally, tired of dwelling in the fog of ancestral ignorance, I took a swab to the inside of my mouth, and I sent in a sampling of my DNA, so that they could test this and send me an email that would reveal new things and provide clarity in regards to my family tree and also my ancestral origins beyond America. And the results came back, showing that my many ancestors on both sides of my patrilineal and matrilineal sides, they first settled in these 5 basic regions that stretch from Virginia to Florida to East Texas. They're all in the South, as you can see. And since we all have 2 parents, and each generation you go back doubles the number of your descendants, your genealogical web, it just expands exponentially. Several of my ancestors came to North America before the Revolutionary War and, I discovered, fought on the American side, like William Jones, who served in the 2nd Continental Georgia Battalion, and according to family legend, he saved the lives of his comrades, during an ambush by the British. He was the only one who knew how to swim, so he towed a barge and put him into a safe place, according to legend. So I actually have the genealogical credentials to be an official son of the American Revolution. I don't think I'll do that, but I could. But alas, I also saw a copy of William Jones's will. I just saw it this past week. And I learned that the war he fought for independence did not also include, in his mind, freedom for black people. Indeed, he owned 3 slaves, and he bequeathed them to his heirs. Equally troubling, I have an even stronger claim to being a son of the Confederacy, since my maternal great-grandfather, not great-great as I used to think, my great-grandfather, Thomas Richard Daniel, he fought in many battles, and he rose through the ranks to become a captain and a commander of a company before he was wounded and captured in the last month of the Civil War. What do I think about all of this? It troubles me. It does. It troubles my soul to reflect upon the fact that my maternal grandmother's father, this is the grandmother who raised me a lot during the first 5 years of my life, her father fought for a truly white supremacist state. It's a term that's used rather loosely these days, white supremacist, but it was certainly, no one would argue that this was a fight for a white supremacist state. And so just as modern Germans have to confront their Nazi past, so too we native Southerners have to face our tragic past. Of course, Northerners have their own shameful checkered history in regards to race. It's nothing to be proud of, but that's not my focus here. My focus is on gaining an awareness of my own ancestry in all its complexity. The discovery that my ancestor owned slaves, and I think I might have other ancestors who did too, I don't know. This is something that I anticipated discovering. And now that I have, I need to discern what this means for me and others. Last year, in anticipation of just such a discovery, I made contact with this organization. It's called Coming to the Table. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it looks like a really, really good organization. A very good friend of mine, she recommended it to me, and so I'm going to check it out. It's called Coming to the Table. It helps ancestors of slaves and ancestors of slave owners to make connections and explore paths to healing and wholeness and resolution. And Heidi, my friend who recommended this, said it was a very, very deeply meaningful experience for her. Perhaps I'll have more to report on this in the future. But even as I think about my great-grandfather, Thomas Richard Daniel, I also recognize that you can have biological ancestors, but we also have our spiritual ancestors. We have our spiritual ancestors, as Howard Thurman reminds us. So you can have both biological ancestors and spiritual ancestors. And those of you who've heard me speak over the years here know that I look to the great abolitionist, the Unitarian minister, the Reverend Samuel J. May, who played a key role in bringing about the end of that peculiar evil institution of slavery. I look to Samuel J. May, and you know I've talked about him very often from this pulpit. He's one of my key spiritual ancestors. In fact, I dare say that I champion the memory of Samuel J. May more than anybody in our movement because he's been largely forgotten, and he's an incredible figure. We should know about his life. I did a whole sermon on him back in June. My DNA sample enabled me to look back even further to discover where my North American ancestors came from and why and when, not why, but when they chose to make the challenging voyage to a new world. My DNA indicates that a good percentage, I think it's 58% of my ancestry, is English. But then I've got some Welsh in me. Next slide. I've got some Welsh ancestry. And then there's nearly as much Scottish in me. Next slide. And then there's a little bit of Germanic ancestry in me. Next slide, I think. Or maybe that's it. There we go. And I wonder about my ancestors in the British Isles. Who were they and what sorts of lives did they lead? And I really want to explore more. I would love to deepen my awareness for my ancestry and travel around the British Isles someday. Perhaps someday I'll get to do that. But then, most surprising, yet not completely unexpected, was the next slide. 1% of my DNA ancestry indicating I have Cameroonian or West Bantu people ancestry on my father's side. Most likely, a slave woman gave birth to a child fathered by one of my ancestors. The DNA science, especially when you're talking about 1%, is not always able to accurately detect such small percentages, and the report may come back next year and say, no, we don't see that anymore, but it's been steady for a while. But I do think, I could well imagine, given my Southern ancestry, that a slave woman is part of my ancestry. And then I remember I said earlier of that story about there being some Seminole Indian blood on my father's side, and now I suspect that this was a possible cover, since in the South any black ancestry was very problematic, and Native American ancestry less so. So what's the true story here? I'll probably never know the answer to that, but the notion that such a person is one of my ancestors makes me feel spiritually larger and more connected to humankind, even as I feel sorrow for the circumstances surrounding all of this. There's a lot for me to wrap my mind around. Coming into the present, my DNA profile has made me aware that I have thousands of cousins, second, third, fourth, fifth cousins who have had their DNA tested, which means that I have a bunch more, way more cousins who haven't taken the tests who are out there, but of the people who have taken their DNA samples, I'm genetically linked to 70,000 of them around the world. And that's just the people who've taken the test. So that's just a smidgen who share my DNA. Some of you might be related to me, probably are. Second, third, fourth, fifth cousins. It would be so amazing if I could go to this giant family reunion. I guess it would have to be in Dodger Stadium or something, where I could meet the fellow descendants of my ancestors. Or better yet, it would be so wonderful if we could recognize our kinship with one another. For ultimately, all our genealogical charts mix and mingle and intertwine. There's one that you can see me down there at the bottom. It's just a genealogical chart just from my family. But looking at that helps me realize that we're not separate. None of us is separate. None of us is. We don't exist apart from one another in realms of isolation. And as I look at myself on a genealogical chart, I gain a deeper sense of connection for my place in the flow of the generations. I think of my son who carries my Anglo-Saxon ancestry and my wife Gordana's Macedonian ancestry into the future. Indeed, this is a time of year when, in many religious and cultural traditions, it is felt that the boundary between the living and the dead is most permeable. And so we have All Souls Day and Samhain and Halloween and the Day of the Dead. And in our congregation, we flow with this rhythm. It's time to reflect upon, to harvest memories of our ancestral roots at this juncture in the cycle of the year, so that we might feel grounded and connected, aware and grateful. And next week will be enriched as many of you share your ancestral stories, and we all remember that we are a part of a greater story than we can imagine. Would you join me in a time of reflection, a meditation? I invite you now to think of your own heritage, your parents, your grandparents and great-grandparents. And it goes back further. And the story is so grand and so large that we cannot imagine it. And yet, let us open our hearts and our minds to great imaginings that help us become aware that we did not begin when we were born and we do not end when we die. We are a part of something greater and more wondrous. And as we reflect on our lives, may we feel a sense of gratitude and peace and joy and wonder. May it be so. Amen.
We share our gifts in order to support the work of this ministry and that of others in this community. We help nourish the Salem community by giving non-perishable foods or money to Miriam Polk Food Share. These are collected in the Little Red Wagon, and also each month, a portion of our plate offering goes to a local charity or program. This Sunday, we share the plate with the Lifespan Religious Education Fund. For those sitting in the congregation, you may place your contribution in the baskets which will be passed by our hosts. I don't see them. Oh, there they are. Cash or checks, please make those out to UUCS. You may also make offerings through our website, uusalem.org. Thank you for the gifts you share.
I'd like to build the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle doves. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to hold it in my arms and keep it company. That's the song I hear. Let the world sing today. A song of peace that echoes on and never goes away. I'd like to see the world for once, all standing hand in hand, and hear them echo through the hills for peace throughout the land. That's the song I hear. Let the world sing today. A song of peace that echoes on and never goes away. That's the song I hear. Let the world sing today. A song of peace that echoes on and never goes away.
I hope you're going to be here next Sunday because they're going to have some amazing, a weaving of a lot of stories from members of our community. So please do show up next Sunday for the worship team's putting on a great service, and it's going to be a great time for us together as a community once again. Don't forget, next Sunday, we have our costume parade, so we always like to do that at the end of the service. So I don't know who you're going to dress as next week, but think about that. So now I would like to invite Leanne Nail come on up, Leanne, and join me here. We're going to say the words up here because you won't be able to hear outside. So we're going to say a few words, and I'm going to give you a background here of what we're going to do in just a second. If you look out on the patio, and you'll be out there, a few years ago, Carol and Paul Manka, members of our congregation, donated a really beautiful Buddha head statue, and we placed it on a pedestal in the patio out there. Unfortunately, a mentally disturbed young man wandered around our property, and he saw that, and he pushed it over, and it fell. And it's 300 plus pounds, and we can't pick it up. The young man later came back and apologized. He was having some difficulties. And so we understand that, and we never were angry at him, just as I'm sure Buddha would not be angry at this. But we understood. And so today, as we replace the Buddha head, we're going to need 5 or 6 volunteers, and the rest of us can stand around and watch and applaud as they lift it up. It's been very well prepared for us, so it won't be that hard. But as we put the Buddha head back on, let's just think of it as a symbol of forgiveness and restoration. And we want to thank especially John Davenport, who's worked so hard to make sure that this Buddha will survive a nuclear hit the next time. It's there. It's not gonna fall over. So I wanted to ask Leanne Nail, leader of our Sangha, our Compassionate Mind Sangha, and the Zen Buddhist Society, Zen Buddhist group here in Salem, to say a few words too at this moment, because they share this space and we meditate here a lot.
There's a Asian-Japanese proverb, and I'm going to say it, and then I'll ask you to say it with me and give you a little short explanation. It's Nana Kyobi Ya... Wait, hold on. Nana Kobi Ya Aki. So if you can say that with me. Nana Kobi Ya Aki. It means 7 times knock down, 8 times stand up. And my Zen teacher, who I worked with for many years, said, you really are mature when you understand the importance of falling down, that happens in our life. And the more we can take it with naturalness, sense of humor, and the joy at the friends that help us stand up. So let's help the Buddha stand up today.
Thanks. Thank you for the leadership you provide around our community, Leanne, and those great words. So after the service today, you get your coffee, kind of drift out, and it's not raining right now, thank goodness. Drift out to the patio, if you will. And I know that I've asked a few of the people to be here today. Good to see you, Pete. We're going to get you out there. But we're going to need a few able-bodied people to help lift the Buddha head up. It's on a thing. You don't have to worry. And we'll place it, and then we'll all applaud, and it'll be happy. So please stick around after the service for that. It's the only time you'll get to be at this kind of ceremony ever. So. I'm going to let Bob Muir clean up the announcements here.
So there are many ways you can get news concerning what's going on here in this community. There's an email that goes out every week called This Week, and there's a newsletter that goes out every month that's called the Chalice and Flame. If you're not registered for one of those and you want the information, contact the office and we'll see to it you get it. Also, don't forget the website. The website's kept up to date, and that's UUCS.org. I'm going to give you a special announcement today of news. We're restarting the choir. We lost our choir director of, I think, 6 or 8 months, and we found another one, and it's our John Chinberg, who sang and performed with this choir in the past. John just had triple bypass surgery, so you haven't seen him for a few weeks. But he is recovering, he's doing well, and he's ready to get started again. So on November 2nd, Wednesday, that's not this coming Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, we will resume choir practice at 6:30. We need more voices. And if you've ever had any doubts about your singing, don't let that be a bar. There are non-music readers in the choir, and there are certainly people in the choir who thought they would never sing. I am one of them. My deceased wife, Becky, encouraged me to join the choir, I don't know, 20 years ago or something, and I gradually got comfortable with the idea. And it's a great joy. Singing is a way of worshiping sort of twice as an expression. When singers sing hymns, they pray twice because you sing with your heart and you sing with your voice. So if you're interested in choir, please come to our choir. There's going to be a table out there during coffee class. There are goodies on the table. And you can get more information from my wife, I think, who will be at the table. There she is. Thank you. Barbara? Oh, yes. She's a better trained celebrant than I am, and she was signaling me just now, and what she was trying to draw attention to was the extinguishing of the chalices, and that's what we'll do now. As we remember where we come from and from whom we come, Reverend Rick will light the lantern of social justice. Sorry, Rick. Oh, that's right. We're going to do that. The lantern of social justice and extinguish the chalices, recognizing that we will now carry our love, hope, and work into the world. Now, Barbara has a few more words for you.
I do? Oh. Breathe. We're going to, please join me in the final hymn, Breaths. And do take advantage of those goodies at my table, choir, come. And I have some additional things for you there to get you excited about it. Okay. Please stand in body or spirit. Listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Wish, wish. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead are not under the earth. They are in the rustling trees. They are in the groaning woods. They are in the crying grass. They are in the moaning rocks. The dead are not under the earth. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Wish, wish. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead have a pact with the living. They are in the woman's breast. They are in the wailing child. They are with us in our homes. They are with us in this crowd. The dead have a pact with the living. So listen, never listen more often to things and to beings than ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Wish, wish.
So please remain standing in spirit or in body as we say our closing words. May faith in the spirit of life, hope for the community of earth, and love for the sacred in one another be ours now and in all the days to come.